皆さん、こんにちは。アルファアドバイザーズの坂下です。今日はハーバード大学とアマーストカレッジ、どっちがいいのっていうお話をしていきたいと思います。で、ハーバード大学は、皆さんもご存知の通り、IB リーグ、トップスクールの一つで、アマーストカレッジもリベラルアーツと呼ばれるアメリカだと、種類の大学の中で、トップ1、2をね、争うトップ大学ですね。で、アルファアドバイザーズでは、今、海外の大学に行きたいという方からのご相談がものすごく多くなっていまして、で、高校生でこれから目指したいという方もいれば、今、小学生とか中学生でこれから海外大学を目指すためにどういうふうな進路を取っていけばいいのかっていうご相談もとても多いです。海外大学を目指す上では、どういう高校に行っているのか、どこの地域のどういう高校に行っているのかとか、どのような活動を今までしてきたのかっていうところが非常に大事ですので、直前にもう海外大学行きたいって言われてもですね、結構そこの戦略が立てにくかったりしますので、早い方は小学生とか、小学校に入る前のお子さんのご相談いただく方も増えております。で、今日は大学といってもいろいろ種類があって、特にアメリカ一つとっても、IB リーグとリベラルアーツカレッジというのは、規模も違いますし、授業の形式も、スタイルも違いますし、結構ね、違いが多いです。で、どちらもトップエリート校と言われている学校はそれぞれにあって、どっちに行ったらいいのかとか、どっちの方が自分のお子さん、あるいは自分に合っているのかっていうご相談も多いです。あと、卒業後の進路どうなんだとかですね。で今日はそのあたりを、今、アルファでも、大人気のね、アドバイザーさん、しかも、日本だけではなくて、今、アルファグローバルで、皆さんのサポートをしていますので、グローバルに皆さんのカレッジアドミッションのサポートをしてくださっている、もともとアマーストカレッジでアドミッションをしていたアドバイザーさんが来てくれています。で今日は、この IB リーグとリベラルアーツカレッジの違いについてお話しいただこうと思います。IB リーグもリベラルアーツも、もちろん他のアジアとかヨーロッパの大学もですね、アルファでは毎年たくさんの方を合格させていますので、どんなことでもいつでもご相談いただければと思います。いつも言っているように、本当にこれからは海外大学、できるだけなら、海外の大学からですね、もっと早かった高校とかから行かれている方もいらっしゃるんですけれども、もう大学からぜひ海外に行っていただければと思っていますし、いくらでもいろんな方法、資金調達とか入学、受験の方法を含めていろいろありますので、いつでもご相談いただければと思います。はい、ということで、ここからはちょっと、英語でやっていこうと思います。So today we're gonna talk about a frequently asked question, the difference between liberal arts colleges and Ivy Leagues. And today we have advisor Melody, who is a former admission of liberal arts college, Amherst College, and is now an advisor to college admission support. And we are here to help you to get into the school you want to go into. And please free to come to us for a free consultation. So Melody, could you start your presentation?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Emmy. Thank you guys for joining us. I know that college application season is upon us, and so please feel free to come to Alpha Advisors for us to help you out. But for now, I will introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Melody Dodu. I graduated from Amherst College in 2021. And I've also done a lot of work with the college, including as a summer intern, an international student orientation leader, a program coordinator at the Center for International Student Engagement, and most recently as an admission counselor at the Wilson Admission Center. I'm currently pursuing a Schwarzman scholarship, and so that's just a little bit about me. And today we're going to talk to you guys about what the differences are and also the similarities between liberal arts and Ivy League colleges to help you make the best informed decision. All right, so we are going to start first with a breakdown of the Ivy League colleges, so what the Ivy Leagues are associated with and what kind of differences that they bring. So the first thing that you should know to introduce the liberal arts colleges, to introduce the Ivy League colleges, is that it was initially created to be a sports association. And so it is an association of a number of different schools in the northeast of the US. So this includes schools such as Brown, Columbia, Cornell, Dartmouth, Harvard, Princeton, UPenn, and Yale. These are all found in the northeast of the US and have over time become associated with high selectivity as well as really high financial endowment and academic excellence. So there are a number of colleges that perhaps you may think that are Ivy Leagues, for example, Stanford or Penn State, but they are not in fact Ivy Leagues. And we'll talk a bit more about the kind of breakdown between schools like that in the liberal arts section. But for now, to focus on the Ivy Leagues, one of the main and really important points about an Ivy League important benefits is that they have very high brand recognition, and this can be helpful in terms of your post-graduation career. So being able to say that you attended a school like Columbia or Brown or Harvard or Yale has a very high kind of capital when you are applying to certain companies, when you're applying to certain career paths as well. And so it can be very helpful in that regard to go to an Ivy League school and kind of have that brand recognition. Another thing to consider is that Ivy Leagues may sometimes be a bit more expensive for international students. And so there are a number of Ivy League colleges that offer need-blind admission. So what that means is that colleges will look at your application and accept you as a student before looking at your financials, and they will meet your financial need should you so apply for. However, this number really only applies to some students that make a certain amount of money. So if your family is below a certain threshold, you do qualify. However, if your family is above that threshold, it can be a little more expensive to attend some of these Ivy League colleges. Another thing as well is that there is a much higher threshold for acceptance. So this ties into the idea of selectivity of Ivy Leagues. So for example, Harvard's recent acceptance rate was 3.2%. And this is among around 50,000 applications. So the number is really, really small. And they're very, very selective. Colleges, especially Ivy League colleges, are looking for students that have high academics, that are looking for students that are involved in extracurriculars, that have honors, and that are able to kind of articulate that they're able to write very well academically and creatively as well. So the Ivy Leagues will have a higher threshold for acceptance. Another difference as well is that Ivy Leagues will often have Greek life, as well as honor societies and secret societies. So what Greek life is essentially Greek lives are institutions known as fraternities for men or sororities for women. However, they're getting a little more integrated recently. But these provide opportunities, very important opportunities for networking within. Looking at different fraternities or sororities in the Ivy Leagues can help to connect you with that community, help you shape community once you are there, and also post-graduation as well. Honor societies are similar, however, they are based on academic merit, where Greek life are things that you apply for on your academic merit. And these can offer similar kind of benefits. So you will get the added benefit of being able to connect with other students that are involved in that honor society, as well as alumni, and gives you great access to these networks. The final one are some secret societies. These are a little bit murky, so we're not quite sure what the process is to get into them. However, they offer, again, the same networking opportunities that other societies like the Honor Society or Greek life will provide as well. Okay, so we are moving on. So those were some differences between Ivy Leagues, and now we'll highlight some between the liberal arts. So an important thing to note about the liberal arts is that they offer equal opportunity for involvement in honor societies as well. For example, the Phi Beta Kappa Society, which is for the students that graduate in the top 10%. colleges in the US, which also offer the same networking opportunities and can also be really helpful for students as well. Some great benefits of the liberal arts are that they are often smaller than Ivy Leagues, and so they are easier to access in terms of having access to your professors and also access to research opportunities. Some examples that can be given are that students are able to be published by maybe their second or third year in undergraduate institutions in liberal arts colleges because they're to professors and to these research opportunities as well. These are available for students who are interested not just in STEM subjects, but also in the humanities as well. So we offer a wide range of different kind of subjects for you to involve yourself in. And the goal of the liberal arts really is to ensure that students have these skills that they need and they're able to acquire them from different in order to have that skill set to apply to whatever track they want to pursue after college as well. Another benefit is the quality of life on campus. So oftentimes you will see that liberal arts ranks high in terms of student satisfaction, student involvement, social aspects. Some of this is due to the size of liberal arts colleges, but also sometimes due to kind of the freedom of liberal arts colleges that they give you to be able to engage in different academic pursuits, as well as different extracurricular pursuits as well. An interesting thing to point out as well is that there are a number of liberal arts colleges that are considered little or hidden Ivies. And these are schools that have very equal academics to traditional Ivy League schools, but because they were not part of that original kind of athletic consortium, they are not considered Ivy Leagues. However, they have very features in terms of financial endowment, in terms of academic excellence, and in terms of selectivity. So some examples of little Ivies are Amherst College, which I'm a graduate of, as well as Williams College, Wesleyan as well. And some examples of hidden Ivies are, for example, Tufts University, and et cetera, and et cetera. So this is to imply that the academics are really very equal, really set the Ivy apart from the liberal arts is that they have a more kind of established network, whereas the liberal arts are a little kind of the social capital that you have going to the liberal arts can depend on which one you go to. There is equal recognition in terms of going to one of these little or hidden Ivies, as there would be to an Ivy League school, but global and Ivy Leagues are a little more recognizable in that sense. So this is a number of differences between the Ivy Leagues. I do also want to kind of highlight some of the similarities between Ivy Leagues and liberal arts. So as I mentioned before, again, there are very similar academic kind of goals as well as academic classes. So in the US, a lot of our classes are either based in kind of lecture-based courses where you sit with your or discussion-based courses, which have smaller class sizes and are more involved in terms of research, in terms of writing academic papers and such. So both the liberal arts and Ivy Leagues are very equitable in that sense, as well as in some cases the financial endowment. So depending on the size of the liberal arts college, in some ways that you can actually find colleges that have a really high endowment. They can allot to whatever program that they have, whether they have a lot of donors. For example, Amherst is a smaller college with only around 1,800 students, but the endowment of Amherst is around $6 million, which means that there's a lot of financial backing to be able to put in terms of financial aid, in terms of research opportunities. And often for the liberal arts, it is easier for international students to be able to get financial aid if that's something that you require. So that is a plus for the liberal arts as well. And yeah, this is just kind of a summary of a few differences. I'm happy to take any questions. I can also talk a little bit about kind of the application process. Liberal arts studies. So they do look very similar. and admission officers are looking for mostly the same things. So we are looking at how well you are able to write and craft a story. We're looking at the extracurriculars that you're involved in, not just the number, but also the depth of involvement. So if you, for example, are in a chess club, how involved have you been? How many years have you done chess? Did you win a championship? Have you kind of graduated to maybe being the some different things to look at in terms of extracurriculars as well. If you won any awards or honors, those are always great to put on your application. And we're also looking for students that kind of have a wealth of experience, not just in terms of their identity, but a wealth of experience in terms of being able to share that with admissions counselors. So these are a couple of things that all of the US schools will look for. There is some flexibility in the essay and in some of the prompts that will allow you to really kind of show your character, show your own individuality. And those are usually the best part of the application, the parts that our admission counselors love to kind of read and engage in. So these are some differences. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I'm happy to answer them for you. And also in the future, as this new academic cycle is rolling around, I'm happy to, with the help of Alpha Advisors, consult with students that are interested in applying to schools in the US.
Yeah, thank you. So interesting. So there is some question. And so the first is from me. Ivy League has, I think, the graduate schools within the same campus. And do you think is it beneficial in regard to study more focus and like more study, like cutting edge research, and they are major for students?
Yeah, this is a good question. So yes, a lot of the Ivy League are universities, which means that they have both undergraduate and graduate students and institutions. For some of the Ivy Leagues, I would say that in fact, because of their size, it can be a bit difficult to access some of the opportunities. So lots of classes, for example, will be taught by teaching assistants that are graduate students if you're an undergraduate student. A lot of the research opportunities will be given to graduate students as opposed to students. And so in some respects, it can be easier to apply for graduate school in Ivy Leagues, but for undergraduate, I think it's a little more difficult to kind of specify in that sense. It's also not entirely guaranteed that if you go to a liberal arts school undergraduate, that you will go to the graduate college of that same institution. Usually it like will work that way, but it's not 100% guaranteed. And there are a lot of students that come from different liberal colleges around the US that will apply for graduate school and get in. So it's not like an automatic track.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay, thank you. So there are a lot of questions from audience.
okay.
The first is, when do the students decide their major in academic programs in Ivy Leagues or liberal arts colleges each?
Yeah, this is a great question. So depending on the school, it will vary. So in some schools in the US, mostly liberal arts colleges, especially those that have open curriculums like Amherst, and for Ivy Leagues that have open curriculums like Brown, usually you are able to kind of explore a bit in your first and second year, and you'll usually be asked to submit your major preferences at the end of your sophomore year. So that's the end of your second year. In some of the US colleges, this can, depending on your interest, if you're very deeply interested, for example, in business or in medicine, you should start earlier. And so maybe you would want to make sure that you are declaring your major somewhere around the end of your first year or the beginning of your second year. But mostly for most schools, the deadline will be the end of your second year, and then you're able to engage in that major going forth. Lots of schools will also offer opportunities to minor in a subject. So if you maybe are very interested in computer science, but you also want to try and delve into psychology, you could major in computer science and then have a minor certificate in psychology as well. So these are kind of the deadlines for different colleges around the US.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, why do some people in the US prefer to go to liberal arts colleges over Ivy League schools?
This is a great question as well. So experience and also kind of speaking with others in admission and other students, students do prefer liberal arts because they offer a little more freedom than some of the Ivy Leagues. They offer kind of more resources, and also there's a lot of social aspect to go with it. So being able to kind of find your place in college can be very difficult. And I think that students have found that at liberal arts colleges, where there are lots of student resources available, lots of student clubs available, and where the communities tend to be smaller, that they can kind of find their space in college as well. So in addition to the academic experience, they also want that like personal experience and that professional experience, and liberal arts kind of fine specific lens on making sure that students experience all aspects of colleges. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, liberal arts colleges, more people in Japan also are interested in liberal arts colleges, the tight-knit community, and
Yes.
yeah, easier access to professors and research and faculties. Okay. So how are Ivy Leagues, how are Ivy Leaguers and liberal arts viewed by companies? Are Ivy League people more preferred, or liberal arts people more preferred? Of course, it depends on the industry and the person's ability, but in general.
Yes, so you hit the nail on the head. It definitely depends on the industry and the preference. But for certain spaces, for example, in financing or accounting, there is, I think, still kind of a slight preference for students that have gone to the Ivy Leagues in terms of evaluating the application. So perhaps if it's seen that you went to Yale or you went to Harvard, your application won't be as scrutinized as someone who went to a liberal arts college. But again, I did mention like little or that are also regarded. So Stanford, for example, is not an Ivy League school, but we all know that Stanford offers very equal academic kind of prowess. And to say that you graduated from Stanford kind of has the same social standing that it would if you say you graduated from Harvard. So you don't necessarily have to have gone to an Ivy League. Some of these industries do have very strong ties with some of these societies that I mentioned within some of the honor societies or some of the fraternities or sororities. They have certain people that are well connected within that and that can help with networking. But in terms of general kind of brand name recognition, there are slight biases towards the Ivy Leagues, but also for very strong liberal arts colleges like Stanford, like Williams, like Amherst. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of people are very interested in their career after graduation. And some liberal arts schools do not even have essay submissions. So what are they looking at to determine the application?
Yeah, this is a good question. So for some of the liberal arts schools that don't have essays, they're looking at the parts of the application that have to do with academics. So they're looking at how well you've been able to high your academic kind of standing is in the school. So they're looking at academics. They're also looking at extracurriculars. I mentioned a little bit about that before, but again, not just with like a breadth of experience, but also a depth of experience. An important thing that they're looking at as well is the recommendations. So these are very important because they're coming directly from the teachers and the kind of community that you've been in. And these can be very important in order to shape and are requesting an application and a recommendation for your application, you want to make sure that you are asking a teacher that is not just a person that you're doing well in their class, but a teacher your kind of ability in class, because what would make the difference between a student that whose application is a little stronger than another student is that you will see from the recommendations that the teachers or the counselor really know the student well and know that the student will be able to fit into the community. So recommendations are quite important there as well. And then looking at any kind of miscellaneous activities, if you do art, submitting like an art portfolio. If you do dance, submitting a video or music. People are looking at students that have those skills as well. So mostly what the essays function is, the main college essay, which gets sent to all the schools you apply to, is to introduce you as a student, to introduce you as a person, and to kind of tell us something that maybe other parts of the application haven't told us before. There are some really good examples of really good essays that I can link in the chat. But mostly the best essays for college essays will tell a story that shows who the student is and how the student is able to fit into the community of the college they're applying to. And then other like additional or extended essays that are not required will just kind of do more of that creative work. So for some liberal arts colleges that don't ask for essays, they're focused more on academics and more on how other people will speak to the student rather than the student kind of speaking for themselves.
Thank you. So the next question is regarding SAT. SAT is optional in many schools these days, but is it still preferred to submit it?
This is a good question as well. So for standardized testing like the SATs or the ACTs, and I would say that it's not necessarily preferred to submit these scores. They can only help you. And so my advice to students would be, if you have an SAT or an ACT score that you think is reflective of your academic ability, then you should submit it. So if, for example, you are doing really well with your SATs and you're very proud of your score, then you should submit. If you take the SAT or the ACT and you think that the score that you got is not reflective of your academic ability, I would advise against submitting that score. So it can only help you to take the exam. And once you get your results, you can decide whether or not to send these. If you are proud of your score, and I think that you should definitely add it to your application. If you take it and you think that your score is not reflective, it can only make it worse if you submit. So then you can just choose not to submit that score and then evaluate your application.
Okay, thank you. So the next is Japanese applicants are typically good at math of SAT, but have some difficulties in reading. How would you evaluate a Japanese candidate with an extremely high math score and a low reading score?
That's an interesting question. So looking at different students and their different strengths, I will say that it is important for students to be able to kind of express themselves, and that that comes up a lot in the English language ability as well as so again, it can only help you if you have kind of a higher reading score. Having a high math score and a lower reading score is not necessarily a detriment, but might flag to some of the counselors that it would be a little difficult for that student to adapt of model, because there is a lot of reading in college, whether it's like math or STEM or reading all the time. You're writing all the time, and mostly the language of instruction is English. A lot of schools across the US will have support for academic writing, like writing centers, but there's just some of a gap that going to be able to be before you submit to college. So my advice would be to work really hard on making sure that you get like a score that you're going to be proud of for reading, because it is important. But also acknowledging that if you do have a very high math score and you're interested in specific math topics, so if you want to do like computer science, if you want to do statistics, if you want to do econ, it's not necessarily a detriment to you, but that reading score will be important as well.
Thank you. I agree on that. Okay, so that's all for the question from audience.
Nice.
And yeah, so we are here to support your college admission and make you get admitted to your dream school. And so please come to us for free consultation. So our admission consulting offers students are accepted to liberal colleges and also Ivy Leagues in the US and winning scholarships. We have an affordable full individual support at 1/3 of the cost of others, and thorough and speedy advice via Skype and online chat. So we have our students from all over the world. The best resume, essay, extracurricular activity support, interview preparation, and SAT, TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo preparation. And thorough goal setting. Why it is cool? This is very important in writing your essay, and logical construction is also very important as well. Unparalleled essay and recommendation writing is our strength also. And over 200 students apply every year from Alpha Advisors and got admitted to their dream school, including Ivy Leagues, top Ivy Leagues, and top liberal arts colleges. So could you give us some comments to future applicants?
Yes, of course. I'm really excited to work with you. So if any of you are interested in consulting and making sure that you get, again, like Emmy said, into your school that fits you the best, I'm very happy to help you students out. And also, if you're looking for advising for all aspects of college, including where you can find other abroad as well, I'm very happy to do that for you. So really exciting to be working with Alpha Advisors. And if you feel like you want some free counseling, please feel free to get to click on it. Let's meet via Skype, and we can make this college process easier and much more enjoyable for you as well.
So thank you for everyone, to audience. Okay, so thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone.